I was marking my 62nd birthday alongside my relatives at a cozy eatery when a server quietly placed a creased slip of paper by my spot. "Don't sip that," it read. I went rigid. On impulse, I exchanged my wine goblet with my daughter-in-law's. Mere minutes afterward, an incident unfolded that upended my world. I'm Celeste Montgomery, age 62, and I could never have imagined that my birthday bash would rescue me while unveiling the ugly truth of betrayal among kin. It unfolded on a Friday evening as my boy Marcus brought me to Giovanni's Trattoria, that beloved Italian spot right in our Atlanta, Georgia neighborhood. He'd picked it out, I believed, since it was my top choice. My daughter-in-law, Allison Whitlock, perched opposite, flashing that rigid grin I'd chalked up to awkwardness or timidity in the past. The place hummed with groups toasting occasions, its vibe cozy under dim lamps that bathed the oak surfaces in a soft amber light, while scents of garlic and fresh herbs wafted everywhere. Marcus had called for a bottle of California Cabernet Sauvignon to raise and cheer, and I truly savored being encircled by my tight-knit crew. "Mom, you're glowing this evening," he remarked, filling our stems with the red. His gaze shone with warmth, making me, for an instant, the most fortunate parent alive. Allison bobbed her head in agreement, though her grin fell short of her gaze, yet the bliss of the occasion blinded me to it. We'd picked our usual picks. I went for chicken parmesan, my reliable staple there. Marcus opted for spaghetti bolognese, while Allison settled on a Caesar salad, insisting she minded her shape. As the meal progressed, talk meandered smoothly. Marcus recounted his role at the downtown State Farm office, and I recounted tales from my gardening phase plus the senior yoga sessions I just joined at the nearby YMCA. Yet an unease nagged at me, a faint strain emanating from Allison. Each time Marcus leaned my way to chat, she'd fix on him with a puzzling look. Her digits tapped restlessly on the wood, and I spotted her glancing at her phone repeatedly, far from subtle. "Come toast time," Marcus rose, lifting his glass aloft. "Here's to Mom," he declared, voice laced with feeling, "the toughest lady I know, who nurtured us with boundless care after Dad's gone, and showed me real grit." His sentiment melted me, stirring joyful tears. Allison lifted hers, too, but her grip shook a touch. "To Celeste," she added, tone edged with strain. "Such a remarkable mother-in-law." That pause before remarkable pinged my radar, though I brushed it aside. Right as I prepared to bring the rim to my mouth, a figure neared our setup. It was a server, a youthful lady with her brunette locks tied in a tail. She bent close, pretending to clear a spot, and tucked a tiny folded note beside my dish. The gesture blended so smoothly that Marcus and Allison missed it entirely. Jada Reynolds, the waitress, shot me a fierce, pressing stare before hurrying off to serve elsewhere. My pulse hammered. Under the tablecloth, with quivering fingers, I peeled open the note out of sight. Bold, hasty letters spelled out, "Don't drink that, your life is in danger. Trust me." Time halted. The din of diners receded to a hum, and I sensed myself detached, observing from afar. Initially, I figured it a cruel prank, but her earnest eyes demanded belief. I eyed my wine, once so appealing, now menacing. Composing myself, I kept a straight face amid the chaos in my thoughts. Marcus and Allison prattled on, unaware of the drama. "Pardon me," I uttered, aiming for steadiness. "Quick trip to the ladies' room." Rising on wobbly feet, I stashed the note in my pocket. Heading aft, doubts and dread swirled. In the washroom, I scanned it again, wishing for a different message. The script was girlish, hasty, yet clear. No name, no details, only that stark, chilling alert. Back at the table, I feigned calm, but fear gripped me. Viewing Marcus and Allison anew felt alien. Marcus appeared utterly himself, chattering about kitchen overhaul ideas. Allison, though, her glances flicked anxiously from my glass to me, like she anticipated an outcome. That's when I resolved on a move that altered it all. As Marcus twisted to summon the server for extra rolls, I grabbed the brief lapse in focus. In a swift, nonchalant gesture, I swapped my wine glass for Allison's. The contents looked exactly the same, the Cabernet Sauvignon we'd shared throughout the evening. At last, I proposed, lifting what was now my drink. Here's to cherishing this wonderful family gathering. Marcus grinned widely and lifted his own. Allison, oblivious to the exchange, hoisted hers as well, the one that had started out as mine. We all sipped simultaneously. The flavor was as familiar as ever, yet I struggled to savor it. My gaze fixed on Allison, scanning for any hint of distress. Initially, everything appeared normal. We kept dining and talking. Marcus shared his excitement about a potential advancement at work, while I mentioned my upcoming trip to see my sister in Portland, Oregon, come autumn. Allison joined the discussion, though she grew more restless by the moment. Precisely 5 minutes post-toast, the symptoms emerged. She clutched her abdomen, her expression puzzled. "I'm feeling off," she murmured. Marcus's face filled with worry right away, inquiring if she was all right. She dismissed it with a shake of her head, suggesting maybe lunch had upset her stomach, but soon her complexion drained of color. Her fingers began to shake, not from anxiety this time, but in wild tremors. "I truly feel awful," she breathed, and I noticed perspiration gathering on her brow despite the restaurant's pleasant chill. Marcus rose at once, steadying his wife by the arms. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" he demanded, his tone laced with fear. I stayed put, observing the unfolding drama with a blend of dread and morbid curiosity. Allison attempted to rise, only for her knees to give way. She slumped back down, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Her eyes glazed over, and a sickly pallor spread across her skin, sending a chill through me. "Dial 911, I called out to Marcus, surprised by how steady my voice remained amid the chaos. The eatery erupted in alarm as fellow patrons caught on to the gravity of the situation. As we awaited the EMTs, my thoughts looped endlessly on the server's warning, "Your life is in danger." And in that moment, a terrifying realization hit me. The target had been me all along. The trip to St. Jude Medical Center in the ambulance was pure torment. Allison had blacked out, and the medics labored desperately to keep her steady. In the rear, Marcus gripped my hand, his stare brimming with shock and bewilderment. I balled up the note from the waitress in my palm, clinging to it as proof I wasn't losing my mind. In the ER, the physicians rushed Allison off for treatment. Marcus and I ended up in those stiff vinyl seats, built to amplify every ounce of discomfort. The sharp scent of antiseptic turned my stomach, and the harsh overhead bulbs cast a sterile, merciless glow. "I can't wrap my head around this," Marcus repeated, for what must have been the 5th time, raking his fingers through his locks. "She seemed perfectly fine just an hour back. Could be bad food or a bug in her gut." I held my tongue. Revealing the note wasn't an option yet, not without certainty on the truth. Yet inside, I recognized this went far beyond ordinary indigestion. The waitress's message echoed relentlessly in my skull like an unending siren. After an eternity, a bearded young physician drew near. His demeanor was grave, his gaze signaling he dreaded breaking whatever he had to say. "Are you Allison Whitlock's relatives?" he inquired. "Yes, I'm her spouse," Marcus responded promptly. "And this is my mom. What's the update on Allison?" The doctor took a seat opposite us, a clear omen that the tidings were grim. "She's holding steady at the moment, but we must discuss the trigger for her episode." He hesitated, selecting his phrasing with care. "The lab tests reveal elevated concentrations of dioxin in her bloodstream." Marcus knit his brows. "Dioxin? What's that?" "It's a cardiac drug," the doctor clarified. "In proper amounts, it steadies heartbeat, but the levels in her are." He trailed off. "Frankly, they're life-threatening." It hit me like a gut punch. "So, are you implying she was poisoned?" I ventured, my words quivering. "I can't confirm that," the doctor said cautiously. "However, that dosage didn't get into her by chance. We'll need to alert authorities for a probe." Marcus shot to his feet, striding agitatedly in the cramped area. "This can't be real," he grumbled. "Nobody would target Allison. She's kind-hearted. Who'd pull something so vicious?" The truth sat with me, unspoken for now. I required further details. "Doctor," I interjected, "could this drug be slipped into a beverage?" "Absolutely," he affirmed. "Dioxin dissolves readily in fluids, and we found alcohol traces too, which amplifies the poison's impact." That sealed it for me. With shaky fingers, I fished the note from my pocket and I showed the note to Marcus. His gaze widened while scanning the message. "Mom, where on earth did you find this?" he questioned, his tone cracking with emotion. I laid it all out for him: the server, the note, and my choice to switch the drinks. As I spoke, Marcus's complexion paled noticeably. Once I wrapped up, he collapsed into the seat, drained of energy. "This can't be real," he murmured. "Are you telling me someone actually attempted to poison you?" "That's precisely what happened," I stated resolutely, even as tremors shook me inwardly. The physician regarded us solemnly. "I'll notify the authorities right away," he declared. "Plus, we'll have to conduct blood work on you both to ensure no toxins have entered your systems." After the doctor departed, Marcus and I remained quiet. I watched his thoughts churn, grappling with the details and drawing inferences he wished to reject. "Marcus," I murmured gently, "I have to inquire about something. Please consider your response thoughtfully." He met my eyes, filled with anguish. "Have you observed any odd shifts in Allison's actions recently? Any changes around the house?" Marcus hesitated for what felt like ages before replying, his words faint. "A couple of months back, she grew intensely concerned about your well-being." He paused, reluctant to go on. "What sort of concerns?" I urged. "She mentioned seeing you disoriented at times, forgetting details, and suggested we might explore assisted living arrangements for you." The admission seemed to wound him deeply. A chill surged through me. Assisted living, like a care facility. "She claimed she'd looked into some upscale options, insisting professional oversight would suit you best," Marcus uttered, avoiding my stare. "Marcus," I said, my voice quivering, "I don't suffer from memory lapses. I'm not muddled. I'm entirely okay." "I realize that," he breathed. "God, I do. But she was so persuasive. She presented studies on initial dementia signs, highlighted warning indicators, and I preferred to think she was simply watching over you." "What more?" I probed, unsure if I craved the response. Marcus buried his face in his palms. "A month ago, she proposed I obtain financial power of attorney for you. She framed it as a safeguard if anything befell you." His tone fractured. I nearly consented. It struck me as the prudent move. Nausea gripped me. The scenario crystallized, far more terrifying than I'd feared. Allison hadn't merely schemed to toxify me. She'd been laying the foundation to render my demise predictable, almost anticipated. "Anything further?" Marcus pressed on, his speech scarcely audible. 3 weeks ago, I discovered pill containers in her bag. When confronted, she insisted they were her personal supplements, but reflecting now, I never witnessed her using them. "Do you recall the pill type?" "Not sure." They were tiny white capsules, scattered across various vials in abundance. Just then, a nurse neared. "Mrs. Montgomery?" she inquired. "That's me, Celeste Montgomery," I confirmed. "The officers are here to question you. Also, the doctor has updates from the extended tests." We trailed her to a secluded area where 2 investigators and our prior physician awaited. The doctor's demeanor had intensified in gravity. "We've performed in-depth examinations," he started, "and uncovered something alarming. Mrs. Whitlock's body contained not only dioxin but remnants of additional heart drugs. It seems she'd been exposed to minute doses consistently over time." My senses reeled. "So you're implying gradual toxification?" "That's the probable cause for these findings," the doctor affirmed. One investigator, a seasoned woman with silver-streaked locks, Detective Lieutenant Lee, shifted closer. "Mrs. Montgomery, any recent prescriptions? Any peculiar health effects?" I reflected on the preceding months. Sporadic vertigo I'd chalked up to aging, weariness I'd deemed routine, fleeting bewilderment that had nagged me, yet I'd brushed aside. "Yes," I admitted softly. "I've experienced symptoms, but I attributed them to advancing years." Marcus clasped my hand tightly. "Mom, why keep it from me?" "I aim to spare you concern," I explained, and Allison convinced me it was typical for someone my age. The statement lingered like a damning charge. That's when it hit me. My daughter-in-law had been methodically eroding my life, all while persuading my son of my mental decline. The threat hadn't invaded from afar. It had dwelled within our household. The ensuing days dragged like a blurred, torturous haze. Allison lingered in intensive care, out of danger, yet comatose. Marcus stuck close, as though dreading peril if he stepped away from me even briefly. Isolation was eating away at him. The remorse was devouring him entirely, evident in every crease etching his features. In the past 4 days, Detective Lee had stopped by my place 3 times. She was a thorough investigator, her gaze piercing enough to uncover deceptions. And with each discussion, more fragments of the nightmarish situation my existence had turned into, these recent months, came to light. "Mrs. Montgomery," she remarked in our most recent session, "we've delved into your daughter-in-law's history. The discoveries are disturbing." We were gathered in my sitting room, the very space where Allison used to drop by frequently to tend to me amid my apparent bouts of disorientation. These days, though, every nook seemed poisoned by her deceit. Allison had served as a licensed nursing aide, or CNA, for 5 years prior to her union with your son, the detective went on. She possessed knowledge of pharmaceuticals and understood well the impacts of various compounds. Marcus, positioned next to me, appeared increasingly worn out with each passing day. Yet what motive could she have for harming Mom? I never detected any animosity from her toward her. The investigator shared a significant look with me prior to responding. "Mr. Montgomery, we've examined your mother's monetary documents. Did you realize you're listed as the only heir in her estate plan?" Naturally, Marcus answered, "She's my mom, but that implies nothing. I never desired any misfortune to befall her for financial gain." "Perhaps not," the detective replied gently, "but your spouse was aware of the bequest, and from our probe, she's been urging you to prompt your mother to revise her official paperwork." I reflected on those apparently harmless chats where Allison proposed it wise to organize my matters, how she'd pushed to join me at medical visits, forever sporting that anxious grin and a tone brimming with pretended empathy. "There's another detail," Detective Lee added. On Allison's laptop, we uncovered messages. She'd been exploring care homes focused on those with memory loss, costly institutions where loved ones seldom show up. My gut twisted. She intended to commit me to one. "That seems accurate," she affirmed. Moreover, our checks revealed queries on hastening mental deterioration among seniors and techniques to stage a passing as routine in folks with heart issues. Marcus rose suddenly, striding over to the pane. His frame shook. "Lord," he breathed, "what sort of beast is she?" Still, I craved further details. Lately, I'd been piecing together events that once struck me as trivial, yet now carried a dark implication. "Detective Lee," I began, "I believe I should share some additional occurrences with you." For the following 60 minutes, I detailed it all. How Allison had ramped up her drop-ins a few months back, invariably toting herbal tea or a unique treat. How, post those encounters, I'd experienced unusual fatigue and bewilderment. How she'd begun quietly challenging my recall in Marcus's presence. Remarks like, "Celeste, haven't you shared that tale with me just yesterday?" Or, "Dear, you inquired about that mere minutes earlier." I began questioning my own mind. I figured perhaps I was truly forgetting things. Marcus pivoted from the glass, his expression twisted in dread. "And I trusted her," he confided in a hush. "Whenever she'd return and describe your spell, I took her word for it. I figured she was a devoted partner, watching over you." Detective Lee jotted down precise entries. "Can you pinpoint a particular incident, Mrs. Montgomery?" "Indeed," I answered, as anger started overtaking the terror. "About 2 months prior, Allison stopped by for a meal. She arrived with a batch of her own broth, claiming she'd prepared excess and hated to discard it. Following the meal, I grew so ill I needed to rest. That evening, upon Marcus's arrival, she claimed to have discovered me muddled, unable to recall our shared repast. And what stayed with you?" I recalled the dining clearly, but the nausea and fog left me unable to protest. Marcus escorted me to the physician the following morning, though I'd recovered somewhat. The doc attributed it to a likely gastric bug. Marcus collapsed back into his seat, shielding his eyes with his palms. "She was slowly toxifying you," he uttered. I aided her in persuading you that madness was setting in." "You bear no blame," I assured him, despite the tangled swirl of hurt and empathy within. "She's adept at control. She ensnared me as well." Detective Lee snapped her pad shut. "Mrs. Montgomery, one final piece you ought to hear. The server who passed you the message, Jada Reynolds, studies nursing. Her grandma passed away 2 years back in a scenario echoing your account." A chill surged through my veins. "How so?" "Jada's grandma, Eleanor Washington, first displayed bewilderment and mental fading. Her kin assumed it was typical age-related decline. She entered a support residence facile. She passed away there 6 months later due to heart complications, yet Jada had always sensed that foul play was involved. And how does this connect to my situation? The individual who looked after Jada's grandmother and persuaded the relatives that she required professional placement was none other than Allison Whitlock. Back then, she went by her birth name, Allison Peters. The quiet that ensued was profound. Marcus lifted his gaze gradually, his expression reflecting a terrifying epiphany. "Are you implying that my spouse has pulled this off previously?" "That's precisely the matter under scrutiny," the investigator affirmed. Jada had spotted Allison at the diner. For several weeks, she'd been tailing her subtly, attempting to validate her doubts. Upon witnessing what appeared to be a domestic scene, she chose to intervene. I recalled that young server who'd preserved my existence, an unfamiliar person who'd displayed greater empathy for my health than my own son's wife. "Where can I find Jada at the moment?" I inquired. "I'd love to express my gratitude. She's assisting our probe completely, and I suspect she'd welcome a conversation with you as well." Marcus eventually uttered words, his tone fractured by feeling. "Mom, I regret this deeply. I'm sorry for ever questioning you. I'm sorry for allowing her to harm you like that." I extended my arm and clasped his hands in mine. They felt icy and shaky. "Marcus, hear me out. Allison is a skilled deceiver. You bear no blame here." "But I ought to have noticed the red flags," he maintained. "I should have realized issues were brewing." "How on earth could you?" She portrayed herself as the ideal in-law fretting over her senior mother-in-law. Most people would assume she was simply compassionate. Detective Lee rose to his feet. "Mrs. Montgomery, please visit the Atlanta police station tomorrow to provide an official account. We'd also appreciate you chatting with Jada Reynolds, should you agree." "Absolutely," I responded. "I'll contribute however required." Once the detective departed, Marcus and I lingered in quietude for what seemed like ages. The burden of our revelations pressed down heavily. "Marcus," I eventually voiced, "you must grasp something key. During those months of bewilderment and illness, the true agony wasn't the bodily unease. It was the belief that I was disappointing you, turning into a load on your shoulders." His gaze brimmed with moisture. "You were never an encumbrance, Mom. Not once. I see that clearly now." But whenever Allison voiced concerns about my fading cognition, it seemed I was forfeiting not only my faculties, but also your admiration and affection. She pinpointed exactly how to exploit me, Marcus whispered. She understood my deepest dread was witnessing your decline, just like with Dad. My former spouse had succumbed to Alzheimer's at age 25 for Marcus. The ordeal had shattered the family, observing that robust, sharp individual slowly diminish into an echo of his former self. Allison weaponized that trauma against us, I went on. She was aware you'd fear me treading your father's footsteps, and she leveraged that terror to control you. Marcus inclined his head thoughtfully, and I tumbled right into her scheme. I was terrified of seeing you slip away, so I accepted every word she fed me without challenge. Yes, Marcus. When did Allison first bring up my alleged disorientation? He paused briefly. It started soon after Grandma Margaret's death and the inheritance she bequeathed to you. My mother had departed 8 months prior, bequeathing a substantial amount I'd intended for Marcus. But it dawned on me then that this had ignited Allison's scheme. She was privy to the funds, I murmured, more to myself. She knew it all. She did, Marcus agreed with resentment. Your testament, Grandma's legacy, my anxieties over your condition, she wove every detail into her flawless scheme. That evening, as I reclined in bed, gazing upward, I couldn't cease pondering how perilously close I'd come to forfeiting it all, not merely my vitality, but my self-respect, autonomy, and bond with my boy. Allison had schemed to plunder all that mattered to me, and success had nearly been hers. Yet she'd misjudged one factor, the influence of a caring outsider unwilling to ignore evident peril. Ultimately, that proved her downfall. Jada Reynolds possessed the most resolute gaze I'd encountered. Meeting her at the cafe adjacent to the Atlanta Police Headquarters, I perceived in her a resilience echoing my own youth. She was slight, just 23, yet her aura conveyed a maturity born solely from suffering. Mrs. Montgomery, she stated, settling opposite me, I've anticipated this encounter for 2 years. Jada, I answered, gripping her hands with mine. I lack the words to convey my appreciation for your actions. You preserved my existence. Her eyes moistened, yet her delivery stayed firm. I only wish I'd managed to protect my grandmother as well. In the ensuing hour, Jada shared the complete account of her grandmother, Eleanor Washington's fate. It was a chilling I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It hit way too close to my own ordeal. Grandma Eleanor was the toughest lady I'd ever met, Jada started up. Even at 78, she kept tending her garden, whipping up meals for the entire clan every Sunday, and managing her money without any help. Total self-reliance. How'd she cross paths with Allison? I wondered aloud. Grandma took a tumble in the grocery store and twisted her wrist. Allison happened to be nearby. She introduced herself as a certified nursing assistant and volunteered to lend a hand. She came across as genuinely warm, really worried about this stranger who'd gotten hurt. Jada paused to take a gulp of her coffee before going on. Allison began dropping by Grandma's place often, dropping off meals and assisting with shopping trips. She mentioned feeling isolated without relatives close by and said looking after Grandma Eleanor gave her a sense of purpose. And your relatives were thrilled about it, I chimed in, piecing together the sequence. Spot on. We all felt so thankful that somebody was watching over her. I was away at school, my folks were pulling extra hours at work. Allison felt like a blessing. When did things go south? Jada let out a heavy sigh. About 2 months in, Allison pointed out little mishaps, like finding Grandma disoriented, leaving the burner on after cooking, or retelling the same tale over and over. Nothing major, but enough to raise alarms. My gut twisted as the familiarity sank in, and everyone bought into it. Initially, we resisted facing it, but Allison made a strong case. She pulled up pieces on dementia, highlighted warning signs, and bit by bit, We began spotting changes in Grandma we hadn't noticed earlier. Maybe she appeared more worn out. On calls, she'd occasionally seem muddled. Some days, she'd blank on our recent chats. Allison persuaded us it was time to face facts. Grandma's condition was worsening. Jada stopped for a moment, blinking away the sting in her eyes. The worst of it was how Grandma began questioning her own mind. She'd confide in me, "Jada, I worry there's an issue with me. Allison says I keep losing track, and perhaps she's onto something." "Oh man," I whispered. "That's precisely the nightmare I went through." Right, and soon Allison floated the idea of moving her to a dedicated facility. She raved about this upscale spot, pricey but top-notch, Serenity Pines Assisted Living, where Grandma could receive proper attention. Did the family go along with it? Not right away, but Allison wouldn't let up. She accused us of being self-centered for insisting she stay home when she obviously required expert support, claiming we prioritized our emotions over her safety. I recognized that move, shame wrapped up as caring advice. "How much time did your grandmother spend in that place?" 6 months, Jada answered, her words cracking. 6 months until she passed from what they called routine cardiac arrest. Yet during my visits, things felt off. Grandma murmured to me that Allison stopped by frequently, always with these prescribed supplements from the doctor. "Did you look into those supplements?" I gave it a shot, but it was already over. She'd gone, and requests for her health records got shut down as private info. Jada dabbed at her tears with a tissue. Deep down, though, I sensed foul play. Grandma's heart had always been rock solid, no prior issues. "What steps did you take next?" I dug in solo. Turns out Allison had a stint at that facility before her CNA gig. Plus, I uncovered patterns with other seniors. Rushed admissions after sharp mental slips, followed by heart-related deaths within months. "Anyone hear you out?" I pushed, but without hard evidence, just hunches. Cops brushed it off, saying dementia patients often succumb to related troubles. The staff there insisted they'd done all they could. Folks dismissed a grieving student as overreacting. But you kept at it. Quitting wasn't an option. Spotting Allison in that diner was like a specter appearing. I'd been tailing her quietly for weeks, hunting for clues. Seeing her with you, eyeing your wine that way, I realized the cycle was restarting. "How'd you spot the wine tampering?" I caught her slipping something in while you and your boy were caught up in conversation. It was sly, but I'd zeroed in on her. Right then, I faced a choice. Hold back and let potential harm unfold, or step in Sand's concrete backing. "Thank goodness you chose to intervene." Jada dipped her head. "What chills me deepest is imagining the trail of victims like my grandmother, or you, that Allison's left behind. Countless households torn apart because one person schemed for cash and control by preying on fragile seniors." That afternoon, Marcus swung by to get me after wrapping up with Jada. On the way back home, I opened up to him about all the insights I'd gathered on Allison's recurring habits. "Marcus," I began, "there's another question I need to pose, and I want your full honesty on it." "Absolutely, Mom. Go ahead and ask whatever you like. Has Allison ever talked about my will or my money arrangements?" Marcus grew noticeably rigid. "Yes," he conceded after a short delay. "Around 3 months back, she began mentioning it often. She insisted it was vital to get your things sorted, particularly considering your so-called mental deterioration." "What exactly did she propose?" "She urged me to persuade you to grant me power of attorney. According to her, it would simplify handling your funds if anything occurred. She also recommended transferring your house deed into my name to sidestep future legal hassles." A chill ran through my veins. "And how did you view those ideas?" Initially, I pushed back. It felt too soon, but Allison pressed hard. She argued it was the prudent move, and delaying until it was urgent would lead to disaster. "Marcus, did I end up signing any papers in the past few weeks that I don't fully recall?" His quiet pause spoke volumes. "Marcus, please, just be straight with me." 2 weeks ago," he whispered at last. Allison explained that you'd suffered a severe spell of confusion and voiced worries about your finances. She claimed you'd invited us over to sort through some files. Upon arrival, you appeared somewhat dazed. Allison had some forms ready, supposedly advised by your attorney. You mentioned wanting to sign them to straighten everything out. What sort of forms? A restricted power of attorney and a change to your will. It hit me like a blow to the stomach. A change. Allison maintained you'd wish to include a provision granting me instant oversight of your assets should you be deemed mentally unfit. Marcus, I uttered, my tone shaky. I never asked for those papers. I didn't discuss that with my attorney. Allison spiked my drink that day to cloud my mind and tricked me into endorsing things I wouldn't have touched otherwise. Marcus swerved the car into a nearby mall's lot and buried his face in his palms. Oh God, Mom, I was such a fool. I ought to have doubted it all. I should have demanded a direct chat with your attorney. Don't fault yourself. She'd been scheming for this for months. She'd groomed you to see me as unwell, my decisions unreliable. By the moment to move, you were primed to buy her account. How do we handle those papers? We'll head to my attorney first thing tomorrow and nullify it all. I'll detail the shady conditions of the signing and ensure Allison can't touch even a penny of mine. That evening, as Marcus phoned his own attorney for an urgent slot, I retreated to my office and pored over my financial records. The scale of Allison's scheme was horrifying. With those papers I'd inked while drugged, she'd effectively seize my whole fortune. After committing me to a facility as a dementia case, she'd freely juggle my funds while dosing me to drowsiness and seclusion. And in time, when I outlived my value, she'd contrive to hasten my end, mirroring what she'd done to Jada's grandmother. It was a flawless scheme from a killer who'd mastered the craft, but she'd erred critically. She'd misjudged the resolve of a young woman unwilling to let her grandmother fade from memory, and that sealed her fate. Allison emerged from the coma 4 days after downing the toxin meant for me. When Detective Lee rang to update me, a weird blend of relief and dread washed over me. Part of me was thankful she survived. For all her evil, I couldn't bear her blood on my hands, yet her recovery also signaled I'd soon confront her in person. "How's her condition?" I inquired via the line. "Bodily, she's mending nicely," Detective Lee answered. "Mentally, though, she's quite restless. She's demanded her husband repeatedly, and upon hearing you're fine, she erupted." What sort of eruption? Total rejection. She swears it was an error, that she'd never harm a soul. But the real worry is her pointed requests for you, Mrs. Montgomery. She demands a visit. My gut twisted. Must I go? It's not required, but it might aid the investigation. Occasionally, facing victims head-on prompts suspects to spill key details, though I get it if you're uneasy. I mulled it over briefly. A portion of me longed to retreat, to act as if Allison had never entered my world and simply allow the authorities to proceed without my involvement. Yet a more powerful urge pushed me to face her squarely and declare that her schemes hadn't broken me. "I'll go through with it," I decided at last, "but Marcus needs to be there too." "Naturally," came the response. "How about tomorrow afternoon? Does that suit you?" That night, Marcus and I lingered in my kitchen over cups of tea, steeling ourselves for the ordeal ahead. Ever since the revelation hit us, he'd shielded me fiercely, as though he worried Allison might still reach out and wound me despite her confinement to that hospital room. "Mom," he urged gently, "this isn't necessary. The cops and attorneys can take care of it all." "No, it is," I countered, injecting resolve into my words despite the uncertainty churning inside. "I have to lay eyes on her. I need to grasp how I missed the warning signs for so many years." "You didn't miss them," he insisted. "She's a master at twisting people." "Perhaps," I conceded. Still, I suspect I ignored the red flags because I craved the notion of a daughter-in-law who truly valued me. Marcus clasped my hand warmly. "Mom, you've never lacked for people who cherish you. I'm right here." I realize that, sweetheart, but it's not the same. You're my child. Loving me comes with the territory. Allison opted into our family, or at least, that's what I believed. At the thought that another person might select me, deem me deserving of kindness without blood ties, had touched me deeply, and she'd exploited that vulnerability ruthlessly. Exactly, I continued. She preyed on my isolation, my yearning for connection, my dread of growing old alone. She pinpointed my weaknesses and weaponized them. The following afternoon, stepping into the hospital felt like marching to my doom. Detective Lee guided us down hallways reeking of antiseptic and suffering until we arrived at Allison's guarded chamber. A uniformed officer stood watch outside, offering a sliver of reassurance. But as the detective swung the door wide and I beheld Allison for the first time since that nightmare at the diner, every ounce of my rehearsed composure evaporated. She looked ashen and gaunt, hooked up to intravenous lines in her arm, yet those eyes, those piercing, scheming eyes, retained their familiar sharpness. Spotting me, her face morphed instantly into a mask of contrived fragility. "Celeste," she murmured faintly, extending a trembling hand. "I'm so relieved you're safe. I was terrified for you." I remained rooted by the entrance, declining to draw nearer. Marcus planted himself like a barrier between us. "Allison," I stated evenly, "we're aware of your actions." Her puzzled look appeared authentic, but I'd long since recognized her talent for deception. "What on earth do you mean? I fell ill. Someone attempted to harm us both." "Wrong," I shot back. "Someone targeted me specifically, and that was you." At last, a shadow of malice flashed in her gaze, though she swiftly concealed it with theatrical sobs. "Celeste, why would you level such a grave charge against me? I've always adored you as a mother figure. I'd never cause you pain." "And how exactly did you adore Jada Reynolds' grandmother, Eleanor Washington?" I pressed. Her demeanor transformed in a heartbeat. The weeping ceased. The feigned softness vanished, revealing glimpses of the true Allison, icy, cunning, seething. "Never heard of her," she snapped, her tone stripped of any pretense. Marcus advanced a pace. "Allison, we discovered the drugs hidden in our home. We uncovered your emails. We know about the funds, the papers you tricked Mom into signing. The whole scheme's exposed." She propped herself up in the bed, her facade of blameless suffering crumbling entirely. "Marcus, darling, hear me out. All my choices were meant to secure our happiness, our path forward." "Our path?" he echoed, incredulous. "Mom's getting on in years, Marcus. Her prime is behind her. Wouldn't it be kinder if she spent her remaining time in a facility suited to her needs, freeing us to forge a life unencumbered by her constant demands?" The detached way she dismissed me, reducing me to a mere hindrance, turned my stomach. "And the cash," Marcus demanded. "Was that the core of it?" Allison exhaled wearily like a teacher addressing a slow pupil. "Finances matter, Marcus. Your mother won't be around indefinitely. Once she's passed, don't we deserve security? She won't require her nest egg to cover some care home fees." "Are you admitting you planned my death?" I demanded, my tone quivering yet resolute. For the first time, Allison met my stare with unfiltered contempt. "I'm discussing realism in the face of what's unavoidable." "How are you realistic with Jada's grandmother?" Her lips twisted into a venomous grin. "Eleanor Washington was an isolated elderly lady destined for the grave regardless. At the very least, I ensured her last days held some ease, and her wealth benefited her kin. She had no one else. Her relatives showed up just once if she was fortunate, it might extend to a whole month. In the end, I turned out to be the sole person who genuinely looked out for her." Marcus trembled with anger. "How many lives have you ruined, Allison?" he demanded. "I haven't ruined a single one," she shot back icily. "I've simply offered a serene handover for those who were already in agony." "A serene handover," I echoed in disbelief. Is that what you term slowly dosing the elderly with toxins until they perish? I ensured their ease, she maintained. No suffering, no dread. That's better than what most folks endure in their final days. Detective Lee, who had been silently jotting down details, at last interjected. Mrs. Whitlock, are you confessing to deliberately ending Eleanor Washington's life and intending to repeat that with Celeste Montgomery? Allison grasped too tardily the slip she'd made. She attempted to retract it. No, that wasn't meant as a general case. The drugs have muddled my thoughts, but the harm was irreversible. She'd exposed her real nature, and every soul in the room had seen it plainly. Allison, I said, edging nearer to her bedside yet staying beyond her grasp. I need you to understand this. For months on end, you sowed seeds of uncertainty in my head. You left me feeling like dead weight, as if my worth as a human was fading away. But I endured, and I'll ensure you never get the opportunity to inflict this on another. Her gaze blazed with wrath. Foolish hag, she spat. You ought to count your blessings. I planned a respectable passing for you. Instead, you'll wither away in some run-down home where nobody gives a damn. Marcus lunged forward, but I gripped his arm to halt him. She's beneath that, I whispered. She holds no power over us now. As we exited the space, a weight lifted from me, like I'd faced down the shadow that had haunted my existence for so long. It was frightening, yet freeing. What are your thoughts now? Marcus inquired while we strolled the hallway. As though I've emerged from an endless bad dream, I answered, and ready to mend at last. That evening, Detective Lee phoned to share that Allison had opted to come clean in return for a reduced sentence. She'd owned up not just to trying to kill me, but to the fatalities of Eleanor Washington and 2 additional senior women across the prior 3 years. 2 more besides. I gasped in shock. Indeed, once the words flowed, she appeared almost unburdened by unloading her deeds. I suspect those hidden truths had pressed on her heavily for years. What's her fate from here? Given her admissions and our proof, she'll probably draw a life term with no shot at release. Ending the call, I sensed no victory or spite, just deep sorrow for the existences she'd shattered and immense ease that her era of horror had concluded. Yet I recognized that the toughest stretch of my recovery lay ahead. Half a year following that dreadful evening at Giovanni's Trattoria, I rise each dawn to an emotion I'd long misplaced, tranquility. It's an odd feeling after endless days of perpetual anxiety, second-guessing my sanity, and sensing fragments of my identity slipping daily. My daily habits have shifted entirely. I don't fret over whether I've secured the entrance or extinguished the burner anymore, since I rely on my recall. I cease doubting each choice, fretting it signals cognitive decay. I recognize my thoughts are sharp, they always were, and that the disorientation and lapses stemmed from toxins, not disease. Marcus drops by each Sunday, and our bond has evolved beyond my wildest expectations. The remorse he'd borne for mistrusting me, for falling under Allison's sway, had gnawed at him for weeks post-trial. Yet we tackled it jointly through counseling sessions, gradually forging a stronger, more solid connection. "Mom," he shared in one meeting, "deep down, I always sensed something off. But it felt simpler to accept your faculties were failing than confront the idea my spouse was a murderer." "How I simpler?" the counselor probed. "If Mom was ailing, I could play the savior looking after her. But if Allison was deceptive, it meant I'd erred in judgment, inviting peril into my family's world. That positioned me as the bad guy." Hearing it stung, but it also eased tensions. Marcus had mustered the bravery to voice his doubts and vulnerabilities, paving the way for genuine mending. Allison's court case spanned 3 weeks. I gave evidence over 2 complete days, relaying my ordeal to jurors who absorbed it with equal parts revulsion and empathy. Jada Reynolds took the stand, too, courageously detailing her grandmother's demise and her resolve to seek accountability. Allison tried mounting a mental instability plea, asserting a character flaw rendered her unable to govern her behavior. However, the state's attorneys laid out proof of deliberate schemes, spanning years, online searches, investigations into toxins and killing techniques, forged paperwork, and intentional money schemes. As the judge announced the guilty verdicts across every charge, the triumph I anticipated never arrived. Instead, there was just a hollow void. This person who'd once been like family to me faced a lifetime behind bars. Justice had prevailed, yet I couldn't shake the sorrow over the alternate future that might have unfolded had Allison taken another route. Following the court proceedings, I resolved to overhaul key aspects of my existence. Topping the list was relocating. Staying in that home where Allison had visited repeatedly to gradually toxify me was impossible. Each room echoed with recollections of those harrowing periods, so I craved fresh surroundings to forge a renewed existence. I discovered a delightful little cottage by Lake Lanier, complete with a garden where I can lose myself for hours tending the soil. There's profound restoration in sowing plants and observing their emergence, in nurturing growth after nearly having mine extinguished. Jada Reynolds now plays a vital role in my refreshed world. We gather often for chats over coffee, cultivating a bond that transcends the ordeal that connected us. She's wrapping up her nursing program, and I've offered financial support for her education. This honors the legacy of her grandma, Eleanor, while expressing gratitude for Jada's role in preserving my survival. During one of our latest get-togethers, Mrs. Montgomery, she confided, "I have something to share with you. Go ahead, sweetheart." Lately, I've been considering a focus on elder care. I'd like to assist seniors in upholding their self-respect and autonomy as long as feasible. That's inspiring, Jada. What sparked that choice? You did, she answered straightforwardly. Seeing your determination to reclaim your world, your refusal to let Allison's actions label you, revealed to me that elderly folks aren't mere defenseless targets. They're resilient fighters who've endured years of challenges and merit honor and safeguarding. Her statement warmed me in a way I hadn't experienced recently. Realizing my nightmare could spark positive change brought meaning to the anguish I'd endured. I've begun sharing my ordeal in public forums, not for pity or spotlight, but to inform households about elder mistreatment indicators. It's remarkable how attendees afterward confide in me, spotting familiar traits in their relatives. One 70-year-old lady described how her daughter's husband was coercing her into sharing bank access through tactics mirroring Allison's on me. In another case, relatives noticed their dad's disorientation spells coincided with his recent AIDS arrivals. I can't rescue every soul, but if my account averts a single incident of harm, the trials I faced will prove worthwhile. Marcus is seeing a new partner, Sarah, whom he encountered at a gathering for relatives of crime survivors. Initially, I fretted over the impact on our mended connection, yet Sarah proves truly exceptional. Open, truthful, and fully honoring the limits Marcus and I set. "Mom," he assured me recently, "I want you to understand I'll never permit harm to come your way again. I've grown adept at spotting control tactics, and I vow to trust your words if anything feels off." "Marcus," I responded, "I don't require shielding from every threat. Just believe in me and my instincts. I'm tougher than we all realized, and that's accurate. Enduring Allison's treachery, battling for my mind and vitality, uncovered inner strengths I was unaware of. At 62, it feels like my true journey is only starting. I've revived pursuits sidelined during Allison's toxic phase. I returned to yoga sessions, greeted warmly by fellow practitioners. I signed up for a reading group at the community library. I even started art classes, a long-held dream postponed by busyness. Each fresh pursuit, budding relationship, and fearless morning marks a triumph against Allison's schemes. She aimed to reduce me to a powerless casualty, a muddled senior, ripe for control and disposal. But she fell short. One day, amid garden chores, I spotted an envelope in my box sans sender info, though the script was instantly familiar. Allison's, penned from confinement. Briefly, I pondered discarding it unread. She deserved no audience from me, no duty to absorb her message. Yet intrigue trumped restraint. The note was concise and, as ever with Allison, utterly egocentric. No remorse for her crimes, rather gripes about jail hardships and claims of being misjudged. It closed with a phrase that drew a chuckle amid the gravity. I hope you might not fully grasp the kindness I tried to show you back then. Even today, after admitting to several killings, Allison still viewed herself as the star of her personal tale. It served as a stark illustration of just how perilous she truly was, and why my choice to sever ties with her completely was spot on. That evening, I tossed the letter into my fireplace flames, observing as the ink dissolved into nothingness. It felt profoundly fitting. The final remnant of influence Allison held over me evaporated into thin air, gone for good. This dawn, sipping my coffee on the veranda of my fresh abode, gazing at the sun climbing above Lake Lanier, I ponder the sacrifices I've made and the treasures I've acquired. I've forfeited my naive faith in people's potential for darkness. I've shed the part of me that assumed virtue would invariably be acknowledged and honored. Yet I've acquired far greater gifts. I've embraced an unshakable confidence in my resilience. I've attained the insight born from enduring the unimaginable. I've nurtured a richer, more genuine bond with my boy, and I've found fulfillment in realizing my ordeal aids in safeguarding fellow souls. Marcus will pull up in about 60 minutes for our routine Sunday meal. We'll prepare dishes side by side, a ritual from his childhood days that we abandoned after Allison disrupted our world. It's one of countless customs we've reclaimed, things I once believed were irretrievably gone. While anticipating his arrival, my thoughts drift to those who didn't fare as well as me. Eleanor Washington and Allison's additional casualties were denied any opportunity to reconstruct their worlds, yet their legacies endure through the efforts Jada and I pursue to halt impending harm. Now at 62, I've come to understand that existence can shift abruptly. It might plunge into horror without notice, yet it can also bloom into wonder when you anticipate it least. The secret lies in persisting, in battling onward even amid utter despair. I'm Celeste Montgomery. I endured a murder attempt orchestrated by my relatives, and I'm sharing my account not as someone defeated, but as a fighter who wouldn't be muzzled. Each morning I awaken liberated, robust, and master of my destiny stands as my most gratifying payback to those who imagined they could shatter me. Enjoyed my tale. And from which town are you tuning in? Let's connect below. If the narrative resonated, consider tipping a super thanks to fuel more tales like this one. My deepest gratitude for your kind backing. I eagerly await your thoughts on it. Check out the 2 fresh biographies displayed. They're ones I truly endorse. My page holds endless more. Hit subscribe so you don't miss out. Catch you for the upcoming biography. Warmly and respectfully,